Okay, what's up, boys? This is a quick video. It probably won't be that quick, but this is a video to talk about where groups at, speed runs, and ultimately help us decide what comp we should use for season 16. The update on our group is going to take a few minutes at most, and then we're going to talk about get into like defining what a speed run is so that we're all on the same page. And then we're going to talk most of this video about comps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get together on Discord and, just chat it out or voice chat it out and ultimately just, commit to a 4-man group so that we all know what it is that we're going to play so we can do research ahead of time to figure it out. So let's get started. So first things first, season 16, lots of set changes, which means that the meta is going to change, which is awesome. So we've got to figure out what comp to use as a result of these changes. This is what this video is about. During the early season, I'm going to be streaming at Twitch TV/Nerox. So you guys can tune in there if you want. I think that Itachi is also going to be streaming as well, which is going to be really fun. And so, I wouldn't stream if you haven't done it before because it'll just be so many things to fucking, try to keep tabs on, but whatever. I'm also thinking of starting a Switch clan, legit only, Switch only, taking experienced players so we can build kind of like a community of people that know Diablo pretty well inside and out. There's already kind of like these awesome Discord channels, which are great, but I'd like to kind of like filter that down to the people who really know Switch well so that we can, fucking talk to each other about how we just beat the other person in a ladder, but at the same time be able to share stuff, thoughts and things. So anyways, I was wondering what you think about that. If you have any opinions, just let me know on Discord. And last but not least, we need one more person to join us for the season 16 start because the fourth person had to bail and I'm super glad that they told us now instead of at the last minute. So we've got a good 2 weeks to find another person. So I'm going to share a link that you can share with your friends where, they can read up on what we're going to do and what our schedule is going to be like for the first 5 days. And hopefully it's going to turn out to be 7, but, we'll see what happens. So share that. Now, okay, so let's get started and talk about speedruns. So there are some limitations on Switch which are super, super important to be aware of, which is that, number one, there's no loot sharing. And so that means that if you start, let's say, with a Witch Doctor and you do a Witch Doctor for the entire season, you're at a much bigger advantage than, say, somebody who chooses a Necro, swaps to a wizard, and then ultimately ends up being a barbarian, right? Because since there's no loot sharing, I can't, if you're in a group setting and we're power leveling you to 70, and then we decide to run rifts, I can't give you items to make you build faster. So it's really all about the amount that we can carry you through the biggest or highest risk possible so that you can get the most amount of items so that you can build your set as fast as possible. And that's a huge difference between Switch and PC. And that actually, I think, influences a lot of the decisions in picking a meta comp. So that's something to keep in mind. And the second thing to keep in mind is that Switch actually takes a lot of time to load in between characters. Like if you quit the game and restart a rift and all that stuff, it takes a long time. And that creates a whole bunch of inefficiencies. So if you wanted to, let's say, start with a comp that is viable, but that comp isn't a push comp, and so you need to move from that comp to a push comp, and you were trying to swap back and forth in between every 2 or 3 runs to gamble shards, let's say, on your new character, that's going to take a shit ton of time and plummet efficiency. And so those are two things that are really important to think of when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. So if time is money, switching characters is really expensive. You want to minimize character swapping as much as possible, but note that, like, I don't have the math behind this. I don't know how long Switch load times are. I haven't tested it, and I'm not gonna. I just have anecdotal evidence from all the time that I played on Switch in Season 15. But it's one of the big things that we need to keep in mind for Season 16. And so if we think of what speedruns are, we're generally talking about like high rift content, ideally GR100s, or rather GR100s is like kind of a threshold, maybe 95 is a threshold, but ideally we're doing 110s. But realistically, I think like, you know, you should forget what's written on the screen here. A high rift would be like a 90 or a 95, and ideally would be like a 105 plus. And speedruns are doing that level of GR in about 1.5 to 3 minutes on average. It's okay to have like a few 3.5, 3.45 minute clears, and you'll probably get a few 1.5 minute clears. But generally speaking, sitting at like the 2 to 2.5 minute time frame is what defines a speed run. And there's this fascinating comment on Reddit. Again, I don't have the exact math behind this, but let's say in a mythical world we believe what someone on Reddit says. They're saying that a sub 3 minute clear time is crucial, right? So going up a few GR levels only increases XP by about 5% per level. So you've got to run about 14 plus levels above whatever comp. Rat runs, we'll talk about that in a little bit, doubling the time per rift. Therefore, you're either doing GR110s in 1.5 to 3 minutes or GR125s in 3 to 6 minutes. And that's something really important here, because if we look at like the math behind that, that tells us that if we're able to clear 90s in 2.5 to 3 minutes, and we swap to another comp, and that comp can clear 105s in 5 to 6 minutes, then we are as efficient, but making more XP, right? Which means that we're gaining Paragon levels at a faster rate while being as efficient as if we were doing it in GR90s. So it's a pretty decent rule of thumb if we're going to believe that comment on Reddit, right? So in a more real-world scenario, if we're doing 105s at 2:30 to 3 minutes using, let's say, rat runs, and we convert to a push meta comp, and in that push meta comp, we're able to do GR120s with, let's say, like a wizard, DH, and barb, and monk. We're able to do them between 5 and 6 minutes. It's more efficient to do that 120. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be thinking of when we progress, right? The first thing that we're going to want to do is find that sweet spot of like constantly hitting those 3 minute clears, and we're just going to rinse and repeat that shit, and then go to T13s, farm our keys, rinse and repeat 2.5 and 3 minute clears. And once we feel like, or once we have like a meta comp going, we're going to be able to compare between both. But that's not easy when you have multiple specs that are on the go. And so converting as few specs as possible, because of the limitations that we just talked about earlier, is super important. And if you do convert, let's say from a rat run configuration, and let's say that I'm the monk, I'm the wizard, and I go and have you guys power level me to 70, and then we start farming until I have a full build, I'm converting because I think that we can hit 4 to 6 minute GRs that are 15 plus or 14 plus GR levels above what we were just farming. And I'm willing to take that hit of time it takes to get my wizard up to speed so that we can make efficiencies over time on those clears because we need the Paragon. So converting takes a lot of time, and my gut tells me that it takes anywhere between 2 to 6 hours per character that we're converting, which can be, I mean, that can be really fucking expensive. So when we talk about conversions, there are a few steps where that can happen. So first, you start with leveling up here. You start with leveling from 1 to 70. And then what you'll do is you'll go towards, over here, you'll go towards getting your 6-piece set. And that 6-piece set that you get from Hedrig's gift kind of sets the tone of what you're going to level early on until you get into the P1 to P1000 speeds, right? Where you're just kind of like blowing through GRs so that you can get to Paragon 1000 or 1500 as fast as possible. And then you'd convert into group metas so that you can like push to the higher GRs. And it's at the 6-piece, the P1 to 1000, which I'll call like early speeds, and then group meta speeds where conversion points happen. That means where you're going to likely need to create a new build to play into that particular meta, the 6-piece set meta, the P1 to 1, the early speed meta, and the group meta. And so in the 6-piece set meta, it's written in stone. We know exactly what we're going to get. Barbarian's going to get IK, Crusader gets Seekers, Demon Hunter gets Nats, Monks gets Yuli, Nico gets Traguls, Witch Doctor gets Spider build, and Wizard gets Archon, Veer Archon build. And so we're going to come back to that in a little bit, but that kind of informs, what our starting point is. So first, we should talk about the end game meta. And it's probably on Switch going to be a combination of the DMO Twister or potentially Talrasha Twister. It's like on the fence what it can and what it could be, but it probably DMO Twister is going to win over Talrasha Twister. And then we get the Impale DH, but the Impale DH could be something different. We'll talk about that in a second. Then we get a Z-Monk and a Z-Barb. So that's what the end game meta looks like today. That might change, but that's like a safe bet. And theorycrafting kind of shows that like it's most likely going to be the case for Switch. Now, the Impale DH might be better than the Trag Necro because it's really hard to aim with Trag Necro. And there's like a whole bunch of, like, we can min-max till the cows come home with regards to what's better than the other. Like, Impale actually just runs up and, like, meelees a boss, which is, it makes it much easier to be able to target on a Switch. And there are reasons why Impale DH might be good in higher GRs, but Trag Necro might be way better in lower GRs. Whatever. I think the difference only matters once we start getting into later seasons, and so we can figure that out. So either way, each comp needs to swap to this meta at the end of the like early season, like converting from early to mid season. And so we're going to talk about comps now. And that's like the early speed comp. And this is where we need to make a decision. So we're going to talk about 3 types of comps. And with that should give us the information to decide what we're going to do. And the first one, no surprise, rat runs. And that's where you've got double rat DPS, pesty Z DPS, and a Z-Barb. And it's super fast to level with 3 Necros and Barb because each spec has like good multiplier items that you can gamble with Kadala. And so the leveling process happens really quick. So you're looking at about 1.5 to 3 hours to 70, which is pretty decent. And so getting the 6-piece means that the next get a Tragul set, and Tragul was buffed by from 33 to 3,800%, which is decent. And Barb gets the Immortal Kings, which was buffed in a big way. But IK is like its best spec is Charge, not Hammer of the Ancients, because Hoda's pretty slow. I played Hoda very competitively a few seasons ago, and it's great. But like you're fucking hammering away, but it's so slow. You're just walking from one pack to the next, and you feel like a fucking lumbering fool. So IK Charge is what we're going to do, but IK Charge isn't that great on Switch, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And the next are probably going to spec Blood Mage early on, which is decent. It's viable. There are drawbacks to it, but whatever, they can be overcome. And essentially, the two necks, like the two Blood Mage Trag necks, need to convert to Rathma sets. And there are very few items that share between a full Tragul build and a full Rat build. Although you can kind of overcome that, but whatever. And the Z-Neck's going to convert to like this hybrid pesty plus like a bunch of other craftable things. And so we're going to count that as 0.5, and I'll talk about what the count means in a little bit. And the Z-Barb is going to convert to Born and Cane set. Again, a lot of this is craftable material. And so it's pretty easy to generate that set because it just costs mats. And so what we're really talking about are the two necks that need to convert to Rathma, which counts as one spec or two spec conversions. And the Z-Neck and the Z-Barb have like half of the build to build or to go and find items for. So I'm counting them as like a point, like a half of a conversion. And so a rat run early on to get ready for speeds means about 3 spec conversions. That means that with Tragul and IK Charge, you're going to need to farm and build 3 sets worth, like 3 full builds worth of items before you're really ready to swap to the speed build. And once you're doing speeds, Rat's awesome. Super fast, super proven. You can do GR 100s in about 2 to 3 minutes consistently. You can do 110s in 2 to 3 minutes if you augment and min-max your gear. And, you know, your Paragon level is pretty high. In Season 16, it might even be possible to do like 112s and 115s pretty fast. But again, you've got to be min-maxing. And the thing I love about Rat Runs is that every kind of like component works with works with every other group member, right? So everybody's moving fast. Everybody's kind of like buffing everybody else. It's got really, really beautiful synergy, and it's super like it's well worked out by now. And so once speeds are done, let's say we're Paragon 1000, 1500, whatever. Converting to meta means that one of the neck DPS needs to become a wizard. One of the neck DPS needs to become an Impale Demon Hunter or stay Necro and do a Pestilence build. The Z-Neck converts to Z-Monk, and the Z-Barb swaps to whatever build they have, and they probably have all of the items because they've just been consistently farming for shit anyways because they're in spec already. So that's 2 guaranteed conversions, right? The Monk and the Wizard, completely brand new characters, are going to need to be carried by the rest of the group to build that. And there's a possible conversion for the neck to Impale DH. So the bottom line is that we're talking about 5 or 6 character conversions. That's 3 at the start of the season, 2 or 3 to convert to meta pushes. But this is like tried, tested, true. We know Rat Runs will work. It's the standard. Cool. So next comp is a Barb or Monk DPS comp. And so the Barb comp is like a DPS Charge Barb, a Z-Barb, a Z-Monk, or an Impale DH. And it's optional whether you have a Z-Barb. You could have 2 IK Charge Barbs and a Z-Monk and an Impale DH. Or you've got 2 DPS Monks, a DPS Monk, a Z-Barb, a Z-Monk, or a DPS Monk and an Impale DH. And so basically you've got 2 Barbs, a Monk, a DH, or 2 Monks, a Barb, a DH. And so it's really similar in approach and similar in the amount of conversions that we're going to do, but has like, you know, some slight variations. And it looks super fast, right, to level. Probably 1.5 to 3 hours to 70. Monks can get Gungdo and Rivera items, and that adds a shit ton of multipliers to the Monk's damage. Barb can gamble Bracers, which have multipliers. They've got the Lutsox's boots, Band of Might that they can get. DH can get Hellcat, but DH isn't really that great early season, so he's mostly going to get carried. It's a fast leveling process. And the Monk gets Yuli, which was buffed in a significant way, but Yuli kind of sucks when it comes to speed, so he's going to want to convert really, really fast. Barb gets IK. We talked about that. The DH gets Nat, which really isn't that great. I mean, it's going to be okay early season because it got a huge buff. But again, the DH is going to want to go to UE multi-shot, or is going to want to go to Impale DH as fast as humanly possible. And so there's a lot of converting going on. On the Barb side, the IK charge is going to remain, is going to keep that set. So they're already ready to start. The Z Barb, if we choose to have a Z Barb, is going to obviously need to convert, but we talked about that earlier, so it's not a big conversion, so it counts for half. The Yuli Monk is going to go to Z Monk, so that counts for half. And then that DH is going to need to go to Impale or Multi-Shot. And so really we're talking about two spec changes. So the Z Barb and Z Monk counts for 1, and the Impale counts for 1. On the Yuli side, on the Monk side, the Yuli Monks are going to want to go Z Monk or Inna. Z Monk or Inna. The IK Barb is going to convert to Z Barb. The Nat DH is going to convert to Multi-Shot or Impale. That's 3 spec changes if we don't really count the Z Barb. And so you can already see that the double Monk already suffers from less efficiency, like conversion efficiency, than the double Barb charge comp. And the thing is that it's unproven, right? There are videos floating around that seem decent, but those videos are disappointing because, you know, like the people who are running them have full paragons. It's not recreating the experience of what Season 16 is going to be. I'm not convinced that Monk, like double Monk, is going to be viable. I mean, you know, like Inna Monk is super, super fucking fast, but I'm not convinced. It could happen, but I'm not convinced that Inna is going to be able to do that level of efficiency at high levels. I think that both comps can probably do 95 to 105s relatively fast. On PC, maybe both comps can do 110s to 115s relatively fast, probably about 5 GRs less on Switch because of the particulars of aiming and all of that stuff. So I think it's possible. And there are some interesting things from an efficiency standpoint. So when you take the comps that we have here and convert to meta, one of the charge barbs converts to a wizard, Z Barb stays Z Barb, Z Monk stays Z Monk, Impale or MS DH goes to Impale DH. Not really a lot of spec changes. On the Inna side, one Monk goes Wizard, another Monk stays Z Monk, the Z Barb stays Z Barb, the Impale DH stays Impale DH. So we're looking at 2 spec changes across the board. And so what that means is that it's about 4 spec changes for a charge barb comp, which is better than the rat runs, right? It's not like hugely, insanely better, but it's still better, right? We're still talking about 1 or 2 potentially less characters that we're going to need to carry and fucking wait until they get all their fucking gear so that we can convert. I don't think that Monk is particularly viable. This is my gut and experience talking. I don't think it's not that it's not viable. I don't think it's going to get us to the level of comp synergy that we're going to want for speed, like the speed metas and the way that we want to run them. And so Charge Barb looks pretty damn interesting. But there's a huge question mark for me for Charge Barb because Charge doesn't have wall charge. I mean, it does, but it doesn't stack your gems, and it just doesn't stack as well as it does on PC, and that's because you can't aim. And so Charge Barb on Switch is you get the full fucking duration of the charge. And so if you're just trying to go from one place to another because there's a small amount of mob density, you can't. And that's going to create a lot of inefficiencies. And so you're going to have to target elites properly, and basically on the fucking Charge Barb, you're going to be doing all the fucking time because it's just going to be charge. So start fucking working that thumb out, because it's going to take a minute. So those are some of the concerns that I have there. And last, we're going to talk about something that I haven't seen any video for, but it's kind of similar to the Barb meta comp that we just saw. This is completely theory crafted, but I suspect might be interesting. This is having a charge Barb or a hybrid charge plus Z Barb, a Z Monk, Impale DH, and Tal Meteor Shower, or Support Wizard if the Barb goes full DPS. And here we've got the Impale DH or potentially UE Multi-Shot DH and Barb doing all the damage if the Wizard is supporting, or potentially the Wizard doing a part of that DPS as well. So you could go Trip Deeps Z Monk, or you could go Double Deeps, double support with a weird off meta potentially meta support Wizard, which could be really damn fun. And the reason why the Wizard is a big question mark is that I think that in this comp, Z-Monk, Impale DH, and Barb all have speed, like near infinite speed boosts that they can take advantage of. They can just move fast. And the Wizard is teleport. And teleport's like 2 jumps. And that's it. Unless you take advantage of some of the items that give you infinite teleport, which is why at that point, you may as well buff speed and damage and do a bunch of standard supporty stuff as Wizards, which can actually significantly help the group comp. And that leads to something interesting that we'll see in terms of conversions, which is, I think this can be fast, right? Monk can gamble Gungdo and Rivera, Barb can gamble Bracers, DH gets Hellcat, but mostly gets carried. Wizard really doesn't have a lot of things to gamble at level 1, and so can get Mental Hell and Delseer early on, but mostly the DH and Wizard are going to get carried. So I think it's like a 2 to 3 hour grind to 70. It's a little bit slower than the other comps. Monk gets Yuli, Barb gets IK, DH gets Snat, and Wizard gets Veer, so they can get into Archon build right away, which is kind of cool because Archon's going to be really fucking powerful this game. And so early on, I think the Wizard is going to be doing tons of damage. And so converting that to the speed means that the IK Barb stays IK, the Yuli Monk goes Z Monk, the Veer Wizard goes Tal, Support, or DMO, or whatever it is that the Wizard theory crafts will be best suited for the early game. The Nat DH goes Impale DH or UE Multi-Shot. And so that counts for about 3 conversions because the IK Barb stays the same. It's unproven, but you can augment the shit out of your gear because, as we're about to see, you're not changing specs. Maybe you are, but you're changing only a few items, not every item. And so I think that because of the augments, it probably can err on the side of GR 110s, but I think can do GR 95s pretty efficiently as well. And I think that one of the big advantages of this is that you can easily convert to pushing 125s or 130s because you're using the same damn set as the meta comp. And so if we look at what it looks like for meta, the only thing that's changing is the support Barb. But the fun part is that the Barb's already a Barb, and so they'll be getting Barb items the entire time, including probably building their full support set. They just need to see it drop and get it, put it in their stash, and they're happy, right? Same thing with the Monk. Same thing with the Wizard. Same thing with the Impale. And so that means that there's no conversion to meta. So what you get here is 3 character conversions, which saves potentially 2 to 6 hours. Again, I've got no math behind it. But I think in this comp, you need high personal responsibility because no one's really talked about this. So we'd be theory crafting on the fly. So whoever it is that's a Wizard, I think I'm down to play Wizard unless one of us, feels like they're super awesome. I've ranked ladder very, very highly. I've had a rank 1 NA Wizard a few seasons ago, and then I stopped as soon as I reached rank 1, and I think it went down to 300 or 400, top 300 or 400, even though I stopped after 2 or 3 weeks in the season. So I think certainly that I've played Wizard 3 or 4 seasons now. So I think I could do it it'll just require a lot of theory crafting and a lot of trying shit out, like probably having 4 or 5 builds that you have in the back of your head and just testing them out based on which items you get first and seeing what you can do to support the comp and at the same time what you can do to make sure that you're keeping up. So it's viable on paper, but it's just completely untested. So Rat runs 5 to 6 character conversions, so there's lots of downtime because of that, but it's proven. It's the fucking standard. We know it can work. Charge Barb could be viable. We've seen people do it on the PTR, and it looks okay. Requires some degree of personal responsibility because there's going to be some theory crafting that's going to happen on the fly. And Meta Speeds looks viable. That requires only 3 character conversions, which is really low. And the sets can be augmented for most characters, which is a huge, huge bonus. We can go right into augmenting our core gear as we're building our core, which is awesome, but it's completely unproven. And that means that it's going to require a lot of personal responsibility for all of us to min-max on the fly and bring our A game to the group. So that's like all I've got from kind of like just by the most facts that I could find. I thought that Rat was going to be the best way to go, and it's certainly the safest. And if we gamble, let's say, and do Charge Barb or Meta, there's a possibility that it's not going to work. And if it's not going to work, we're going to be behind. Behind what, though? I don't know. Maybe, I think it's really just behind like what we hope that we can achieve, right? Like, I don't know if we're going to get top 10, top 15, top 25. I'd like to, but I have no idea what it's going to look like in Season 16. But what I do want to do is be better than I've been in all of my past seasons. And that's a high bar for me, right? And I know that I'd be disappointed if it turns out that our Charge Barb comp didn't work. But I think I'd also be stoked that we tried. And I have a hard time thinking that any of these comps will just be not viable. But I don't know. And so if I had to vote, I think that Meta Speeds looks like it could be really fucking great for Switch. But we're going to need to take the next 2 weeks to figure out exactly what it is that we're going to play and what our options are. And the Wizard is the biggest question mark that I have. Also, the DH is a question mark. Is it UE multi-shot? Is it Impale? Do we even need Impale at GR 110s, or can the Wizard or Charge Barb take care of the Rift bosses? Can the IK Charge Barb be viable for Season 16? I don't know. There are a lot of fucking unknowns. Rat's proven, but like, you know, sometimes it's worth taking a risk, right? So I think my vote is on Meta Speed, but it's certainly not a firm, like I'm not putting my word to that just yet. This is a discussion. It is not anything set in stone yet. That's it. That's all I've got. Thanks for listening.